when people hear about the children living in a car in the woods, we see stuff like that on TV, but we're seeing it every day in real life.
So what does Thanksgiving look like for those in our community that are homeless?
But it can be a lonely time. It can be alone, especially if you grew up, which a lot of these folks did, with families and gatherings and what have you. And, it's hard not to get caught up looking at the past. The ones that have families are actually invited home. Hearts are opened this time of year. Often once the holiday is gone, that day-to-day interaction with them is gone as well.
Is it true that some of your guests may participate in family gatherings this week without even letting their family even know that they are homeless?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yeah. That is a common thing. I've actually had to call a family and explain to them that their father had passed, and what his connection to Matthew's Hope is. Most of the time, they're very, very shocked. Why didn't he tell me? We would have helped.
Right.
That's we hear so many times is we would have helped.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Lewis with We Are Winter Garden, and we are joined by Scott Blue, who is the founder and CEO of Matthew's Hope, and Shelley Bradford, who is the president and executive director of Matthew's Hope. Welcome to episode 58 of Straight Talk No BS with Matthew's Hope, where we will be talking about what Thanksgiving is like for those unhoused. This week is Thanksgiving, so let's start by sharing something that we are thankful for. Shelley, you want to start us off?
Well, it's so silly to say I'm thankful for my family, but I am. I'm especially thankful for my husband because he's so good at supporting me and what I do and my adventures and all my crazy ideas. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for her husband as well.
And he's thankful for you.
Yeah, well, he puts up with a lot. He really does. Shelley has to spend probably more time with me than she often gets to spend with him.
Mm-hmm.
And all kidding aside, he's a spectacular human being, and he gets her and she gets me, so it works out. And obviously I think it's obvious, but Charlene, who is just the love of my life and a partner with me in this mess that we call life. And, I'm thankful. We've got an amazing staff of people and volunteers and supporters that make what we do possible. And I'd be remiss to not give thanks for them.
Definitely.
For sure.
That's good. Well, I'm too thankful for my family and for their health, of course, but also my car. It has 200,000 miles on it.
Wow.
And I purchased it in 2014, so it's 10 years old.
Okay.
And it's still zooming on the road. It's a Mazda, so zoom, zoom.
Oh, holy smokes.
Yes. All right. So what does the schedule for Matthew's Hope look like this week?
This week we will be open Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And probably sometime around noon on Wednesday, we'll go ahead and close a little bit early so our staff can go home and prepare for their families that are coming or do the traveling that they need to do as well. But on Tuesday, we will actually be serving our homeless guests and making sure that they're set because it'll be a week before they'll see us again.
Okay.
And I realize that for those of you that don't know us or familiar with Matthew's Hope that are watching today or listening in, it seems like an odd time. I know that when people say you're closing during Thanksgiving, and the truth is during this time of year, there is an extraordinary number of people coming out wanting to help and do something.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those times that I felt was an important time for us to send our families home to refresh, relax, and they'll be ready. We do this during Christmas as well. Again, I know that sounds strange, but it's something that has proven to be very effective and allows the organizations that want to feed meals on those days and what have you to do so, and we just kind of step aside.
It gives us a break.
Yeah.
Makes
because
sense.
we're here really 52 weeks a year, and so it's nice for us to have a little break.
That's nice that you guys do that. So what does Thanksgiving look like for those in our community that are homeless?
It's interesting. The ones that have families are actually invited home for the holiday, which I think it's good and can be rough at the same time. Again, hearts are opened this time of year, and so that's great that some of these folks get to reconnect with family. The other side of it is often once the holiday is gone, that day-to-day interaction with them is gone as well. So I think it can be happy and sad at the same time. Keeping in mind that a lot of our folks, there is no family, and a lot of them will go to different places to have a meal. We will certainly have a nice meal right before that, but it can be a lonely time. It can be alone, especially if you grew up, which a lot of these folks did, with families and gatherings and what have you, and it's hard not to get caught up looking at the past.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is it true that some of your guests may participate in family gatherings this week without even letting their family even know that they are homeless?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that is a common thing.
Yeah.
How is that possible? How does your family not know that you're homeless?
Well, one thing that Scott has often said is people come here to retire. And so if you or me live in another state, we just think our parents went and retired down in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be, I grew up in a time that typically what happened is you visited the grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody got in the car and you drove across town. Some people flew across country. But back then, families were more concentrated into an area.
Yeah.
And we weren't so spread apart like we are today. And so what happens is now it's the grandparents traveling. And often, especially when we see men that have lost their wives, their attitude is that my family has enough issues of their own. They don't need to be burdened by my homelessness. And so they will get cleaned up. Most of the time, take a bus. They usually will say they're afraid of flying because the bus is cheaper. So they'd say, I'm going to take the bus. But they show up and they spend the week or whatever with their kids and grandkids, great grandchildren, what have you, and then they come back into homelessness. And the sad part about that, and this call has been made more than times than I want to remember over the years, where I've actually had to call a family and explain to them that their grandfather, their father, had passed, and what his connection to Matthew's Hope is.
Yeah.
And most of the time, they're very, very shocked. Because they ask, well, why do you know who he is?
Right.
Well, he's been under our care for the last 5 years. Why didn't he tell me? We would have helped.
Right.
That's we hear so many times is we would have helped. But you're also talking about a generation that was very much taught to be self-sufficient. Okay, that World War II and behind, say between World War II and Vietnam era,
Yeah.
that was a time you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps, and you weren't a man if you weren't providing, if you weren't a man if you weren't doing this, and this, and so what happens when you take a man and you literally crush his sense of manhood, it's really tough, and they can play the game for a week, and then come back and go back into
How
the woods.
lonely that must be once they come back.
It's tough, and I'm really happy that we're able to offer some level of mental health care for those who want to talk about that. Some of them need to talk about it beforehand because they're trying to prepare themselves for being in a high energy area when they have become used to being in a very quiet area. So the anxiety level can grow high. Sometimes that's how the homelessness comes out over the holidays. When dad loses it, because your kids are running around and things are loud, and it's, again, there's so much that plays into this that I don't believe the general public really are aware of.
So if one of our viewers or listeners is getting together with family and friends this week, which a lot of us are, what is one topic related to homelessness that you would encourage them to bring up and discuss?
Ooh,
That's a good one.
I feel like this is a good challenge for us all to dig a little bit deeper and not be such surface level topics.
Yeah. I think it's important that, I can remember as a kid, guilt was always a big thing, where you didn't want to eat something. And I remember one of my best friends when I was in elementary school, maybe junior high, and Steve's dad said, I want to get you a pizza. He says, I don't want a pizza. And he said, well, there's kids over in Vietnam that would love to have that pizza. And Steve says, well, send them the pizza.
I said that to my mom once.
Okay, yeah. First off, let me just tell you that Steve, he did live, but it didn't go well for a little while. But that was a way of saying, well, look, you could have had it worse. I think it's a better approach to it is how thankful we are knowing that others just don't have what we have.
Yeah.
I think conversation about homelessness is important in a healthy way, whether it's the Thanksgiving table or not, I don't know, but in a healthy way, because of the fact that, I've spoken about this in the past where I've spoken at schools, especially with young kids.
Yeah.
And when I ask the children, what do they know about homeless people? And they'll say, well, they're lazy, they drink a lot, they don't have jobs, they don't want to work, they're dirty, all these things. And these kids are between 5 and 8 years old.
That's just what they've heard.
That's a taught behavior.
Yeah.
That
Right.
you don't know that.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we come out of the womb being pretty compassionate until we
Right.
become jaded by what happens around us. So I think we as parents and grandparents, what have you, we shape the thinking of the people behind us.
Yeah.
And I think we really need to consider that whether we're talking politics, whether we're talking religion, whether we're talking about social services, whatever that is, I think we need to make sure we check ourselves
I agree.
before
definitely.
we open thy trap and understand that the ears are listening, and you may plant a seed, sometimes unintentional.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes it's very intentional, but sometimes it's very unintentional, that plants a seed that grows into hate.
Yeah.
And the child doesn't even know why they hate this. They just know they're
They just know
supposed
they
to.
do. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right,
Correct.
right.
Okay?
So when everyone is
That
focused,
should be a great Thanksgiving topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Who
Bring it
came up
out.
with that question? John?
I didn't read it. I promise.
You know what? All kidding aside, it's a very tough subject.
Yeah.
Especially in the political atmosphere we've been in the last few years. It's trying to get people to understand that this is not about giving away things. This is not about. It's about human compassion. It's about understanding that, how people get in this position.
Right. And asking the
Yeah.
questions, which is one of the reasons why we are here.
Yeah, and hopefully we accomplish that throughout the years
Yeah.
as we do these podcasts of educating and enlightening and open ourselves up to questions to what's really going on.
And Shelley, what do you think is a good topic to bring up with the family while we're together?
Well, it's interesting you ask because there's a lot of my extended family that knows that I work for a ministry, and I think that they think that I sit around and do Bible studies all day. They don't really know what I do, so it does come up quite a bit, and then I have to always explain to them that we are set apart from your local shelter that just gives out things, and then I always point out to them. When it comes up in conversation, because my in-laws have visited and we've had conversations about it, that a lot of our homeless guests are their age. And that's always shocking to them
Yeah,
because
does it hit
they
home?
did plan ahead. And even some of our homeless guests that did plan ahead, they didn't plan ahead for this economy.
Yeah.
So, that's one thing that always shocks people when I talk about that.
It's interesting you say it because that's probably for those who are willing to open their ears and hear truth. When we start sharing that our fastest growing populations are those over the age of 65,
Yeah.
followed by those with physical and mental disabilities. It was not planned out for this person to outlive their caregiver. When people hear about the children living in a car in the woods, you see stuff like that on TV, but we're seeing it every day in real life.
Yeah.
And I think that when people start to understand that, they go, well, so what about this guy? And I'm going, that's probably not a homeless person.
Right. It's funny that, well, not funny, but Kylie, she's volunteering now at Lift Disability, and they have an adult program. And she's like, Mom, I'm learning so much. Like, they're their own people, but at the same time, they rely so much on their caregiver or their parent. She's like, and these are like older, like caregivers and parents. She's like, what's going to happen to them when they pass away?
Yeah.
I'm like, good point, because we've been talking about that with Matthew's Hope, that a lot of the population is becoming homeless because their caregiver or their parent has passed away. And
what's interesting is that it wasn't that many years ago that really wasn't even part of the plan because these people weren't living past their 30s. Most of the time, the parents were burying their child. And now, for whatever reason, whether it's modern medicine or what, something's changed, and they're 50, 60, 70 years old, or sometimes older.
Right.
And their caregiver died years ago.
Yeah.
And they end up on the street because there was nothing in place. And that's more common than people think it is.
Yeah. So when everyone's focused on things that they're thankful for and grateful for, do you find that donations and support tend to go up?
Yes, they do. They do, because this is the season where people feel like they want to give more, and they're more giving during the holidays always.
How can we get that to change? I feel like it's like they're fulfilling their own cup. I don't know if that's nice to say, but during the holiday seasons, it's giving season, but then it's like totally forgotten throughout the rest of the year.
I really think, we need to focus a lot on sustaining donors, because then that way it's something that you do all year round, and you kind of don't think about it. Kind of like you and I pay taxes. We just don't think about it. When we pay our tithes, we just don't think about it. That's just what we do. And if we had more people like that it was just one of their bills that they just pay, not a bill, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's weird that we even have
just an automatic.
Right.
It just becomes piece of their everyday life, and they don't even think about it. I mean, I know I've got things that I give to that, quite honestly, until I get the receipt, I forget.
You forget that you've done it.
I even did it. I think it's weird and strange and odd that we have a giving season. Because what happens now is that you will have every nonprofit out there trying to fish out of that same pond.
Right.
And it's tough because you're pitting organizations against each other, whether it's done purposely or not. And what often happens is people are trying to outspend each other, to be able to do that. And we just don't have that capability. I tell people all the time, I had this conversation the other day, if you want to know what the sense of things are in the nonprofit world right now, watch TV and see the commercials you see. When you see St. Jude and you see the blood bank and you see, muscular dystrophy and these, all hitting everybody. There's a reason why, because they know it's giving season. But number two, I've seen those ads being spread out throughout the year now. And I think a lot of it has to do is we've had a lot of natural disasters and things like that. We've had ups and downs of the economy. We're still, I can tell you that we're still reeling from the pandemic.
Yes.
Where a lot of nonprofits had to shut down. We're still trying to get our footing back after the pandemic. So it's kind of a weird time because there's a lot of good to be done out there. And, what happens is a lot of times your smaller nonprofits like Matthew's Hope, we kind of get lost in the mix. And that's tough. I don't know that I have an answer other than I always encourage people that whatever you're giving to, look at it as though it's an investment and ask yourself what your return on your investment is.
For sure.
If you can see, like in us, you can see our Moving Forward magazine, you can join us on our podcast and hear stories that we share. You can visit our locations and take a tour and meet actual people that are being helped. You can see that return. And I think it's important that whatever you give to, we all have different things that move us and move our heart. Yeah. Maybe homelessness isn't something that moves you. Okay, but there's something out there that must move you. Now, before you just pen a check and stick it in an envelope or go online and do something so you can get the t-shirt, look at what not just what's on paper. Right. Statistically, I can make almost anything say whatever I want it to. Okay.
Right.
Look at the stories, look at the people.
Love that. So Giving Tuesday is next week. What are some things people can do this time of year to help you, help them, help themselves?
I always say let's watch our social media, because our social media, our needs list always updates. Scott's real good about it. Our media team is really good about making sure that stays current and up to date. And donations.
Yeah, you can give on Giving Tuesday.
For sure.
That'd be okay. There's an idea.
We'll take your check.
What did I say? You got Black Friday. You got
Cyber Monday.
Cyber Monday. Okay. And once you're done shooting all that out, whatever you got left, think of Giving Tuesday. But again, it's I've always had a hard time kind of getting my head around Giving Tuesday. But the point behind it is to get people to think about the fact that, hey, you're spending this on yourself and on your family, and you're getting these things you want, and you're doing all these things that a lot of times throughout the year you won't do. Maybe this might be a great time to also think of somebody else.
Yeah.
And we're thankful for them.
And we're very thankful for
Yeah.
them. And truth is, if you've never been that person, I will tell you that it does change who you are in a positive manner. I personally, I'm at a place in my life that I don't really care if I get anything from anybody.
Yeah.
But I love being able to do for other people.
Yep.
I really do. That's just cool.
Right.
Yes.
Especially when you see those people there's not much in my life at 62 years old that I want or need. But there's a lot of people I see out there that, man, I tell you what, it's a big, this has nothing to do with this, but I'm going to share it because it's just kind of cool. So, we've had some events lately, and some of our guys in our Brevard team that are in the program have they've put in long days and hours. And so rather than just earn more points, which they did, I decided to take them out to a Brazilian steakhouse, and took 3 guys out. And it was really funny because the one, Chris goes, I really don't eat meat. No. So we sit down and they come and they say, you want that medium rare, how would you like it? He goes, well done. And we go, everybody at the table goes, no, just try this. When it was done, by the time it was done, Chris was the smallest person at the table. He out-ate everybody.
Well,
and really enjoyed it.
is he a meat eater now?
But he's a meat eater now. Yeah, it ruined him. He's going to have to get good work. But the cool thing for me, I enjoyed the meal. I like going to this place. I like the owner, Eddie. I like to go. It's called Barrasso's in Merritt Island. But to watch Rick, because he's had no teeth. Okay, couldn't eat meat. And so to sit there and watch him eat the meat like that, and again, it was such an easy way for us to kind of give to something that they couldn't do for themselves.
Yeah.
But as I watched it, I'm sitting there going, with each of the guys that were there, we had people that had their teeth replaced. We had people that had eye surgery that could actually see what they were eating. There were so many things that came into play here. It was just a really blessed time.
Something we don't think about when we go to eat, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like we just eat it because we do it.
And I probably ate less just because I was so into what they were doing and how much they were enjoying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so the same thing through the holidays is when we're able to, one of the things we try to do this time of year, and if anybody's able to help us, we'd appreciate it, is to give our guests some new items. A new hoodie, new pair of jeans, new pair of running shoes, and new T-shirts, whatever. That is a huge thing if somebody wants to donate towards that or buy those type of things, because we will have Santa visit them as we do every year. Santa visits our preschool at both locations. He visits both our locations to meet with our guests on an outreach day. But we try to set it up to where they get some items that are new, that were theirs, and theirs, not somebody else's before them.
Right.
And that's a lot of fun too, because we do it in such a way where they get to choose. We have a number of things out there, and we give them a ticket, and they get to go up to the table, off each table type of thing, and choose what they would like to have.
That's great.
And so it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun.
It is fun.
Love that.
It is fun.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I'm very, very grateful for you both. I've learned so much with all of these episodes, and I'm excited to even learn more. I hope you guys are learning and excited to watch the next episode. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and happy Thanksgiving.